Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name's Eli, and on this channel, I talk about my AI consulting business, show some inside tips and tricks, and show tutorials on how to build cool shit in the AI world that'll hopefully benefit your business. So if that sounds interesting, I'd appreciate a subscribe if you're feeling generous. Now, in this video, I wanna go over a really straightforward, simple, 3-part onboarding process built in Make that any agency, service-based business, or otherwise, coaches, consultants, anyone can implement this into their systems. I've stripped away a lot of the complexity from these builds so that it is never been easier really for somebody without technical skills, without skills in Make, can actually just jump right in, build this on their first try, and get it up and running in their business in like an hour or two, maybe. So super value packed, hopefully. Now, part 1 of the automation, we're going to use Airtable. We're going to send them an invoice directly from Airtable using Stripe. So that is all taken care of directly in Airtable. You just have to toggle one switch and they will get an invoice directly sent to their email. Part 2 of that is once that invoice has been paid, they will get, a new Slack channel will get made, and then a message will get sent to it, just being like, hey, welcome. This is our Slack channel. This is where we communicate. That's part 2 of it. So we have the invoicing done. We have the communication with the client all set up. There's very little, there's like 2% intervention from you. It's about 98% automated, this system. And then part 3 of this build is going to be an automated email follow-up sequence where if the person hasn't paid the invoice yet, or perhaps hasn't sent a message to the Slack channel, they will get an email at certain days that we select, and then that will encourage them to pay the invoice, say that we're excited to work with them, so on and so forth. So the follow-up's covered, the invoicing is covered, and the communication in Slack is all covered in this automation. Very excited to start building it. Let's go. So I feel like there's no better place to start in this video than one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes: simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. And I think what this means, what he was getting at here, is that it's harder to strip away features from something than to add features. Similarly to how when you're like writing, it's easy to write like 2 pages of just garbage and brain dump, but then going back and revising and stripping stuff from that to make it more like succinct and clear is always the challenge. So I think that that is no different when building automations, and that applies to this sort of stuff. I see a lot of automations on YouTube that are just these 100 module automations in Make. So this is what a scenario will look like. And these are all the modules that all have a certain job to do within the build here. So I see ones that are like hundreds of them, whereas they could be like 20 or less. So that's kind of what I want to focus on in this tutorial. And that goes back to just the simplicity and the beginner friendliness of this. So this is step number 1. This is going to be part 1 of our automation. We can add part 1 up there. So I'm not going to build them from scratch, but I'm going to go over everything in like the best detail that I can. I'm going to show you all the inner workings of every single module in this tutorial, and hopefully that should suffice and be enough for you to kind of get into it and start building these yourself. So this is the automation. So you can see it starts with Airtable. So let's actually just jump over to Airtable and see what we're working with here. So I've created a base. It's called lead list. And my table within my base is called burning hot leads. Now I've added a potential client, Nomi Nordic Spa. So we have all of our titles here. We have the name, which is short text, deal summary, which is long text, email, which is an email field. So these are all very easy to set up with an Airtable. Email, phone, address, postal code, city, country, invoice amount, the current status of the email, the invoice, which is a toggle list right here, and then the email sequence, which is also a toggle list right here. And then we just have a last modified field at the very end. So hop into Airtable, set this up, should take 2 seconds. And just for the sake of following with this tutorial, I would recommend adding every single title exactly as I have it with the same fields: phone number, single line, and just add this, and then after you build it all, you can kind of experiment, and you can probably change some stuff in here to suit your liking. So again, this is going to be our extremely simple Airtable base that we will use as our hub for kind of this entire 3-step automation here. Boom. So we have this. Again, this would be very easy to set up in Google Sheets as well. I'm not going to do it in there, but I'm sure with a little bit of work on your end, you could figure that out. So this is what it looks like here. We're going to set this up. So now if we go back into Airtable and we go to our first module, or sorry, we go back into Make and we go to our first module, our watch records. We have our Airtable token or key. All you do is you just click add connection type, Airtable token or key. Excuse me. And if you go to here, you can go into, API keys will be deprecated. So we have personal access token. You go into here and you should be able to find that pretty easily in Airtable. Just look up Airtable personal access token. It should all be there. Again, it's good to do a little bit of work in these tutorials. It's good to go out of your way and do a little bit of work. So boom, we have that. We pick our base, which for me is lead list. It's the exact base that you created. So lead list, and then burning hot leads is going to be the table within that base. Base, lead list, table, burning hot leads. Our trigger field, which is required, is going to be our last modified field. You can also use a created at field in here, but just do last modified. Super easy. How you add that is you just go to the end here, go to here, click the plus, click last modified time, and just click create field. And it will work perfectly. And that's how you get your last modified field. So that's going to be our trigger field. Our label field, I just put invoice. That is fine. It's a field that will be used as a label for a record. Just pick invoice for this. However, this isn't going to be detrimental if you pick any of them. I've selected just one record to return as the maximum number of records to return because I want this to send one invoice per client. And again, if you did like 5 for the limit right there, it would just sequentially pick 5 rows in your Airtable and then create 5 invoices for all of those rows. So it's not the end of the world, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm using one. Now we're going to click grid view, which is the only view we have. As you can see, it's the only option here. So similarly in Sheets, you can create different views. We have grid view. These are all our different views: calendar, gallery, Kanban, timeline. Grid is the simplest and probably the one that people use most in a CRM build, especially pertaining to Airtable. So then our formula. So this is how simple it is. We're going to use if invoice is equal to send invoice. So if we go back to here, our invoice field, if invoice is equal to send invoice, which it's not right now, then where are we? So if invoice is equal to send invoice, we can trigger the automation. And again, this trigger automation, this isn't necessarily relevant. You can put anything you want here. You could probably even leave this blank. However, this is what I got working for me. I find that the formulas in Airtable can be a little bit sketchy. I don't know if it's something in their backend server that has trouble reading some of the formulas sometimes, or if it's just my poor Airtable formula skills. You'll notice if you're familiar with SQL databases and if you've queried those at all, it's a little bit similar to that in terms of syntax. So this can be our formula. You can just copy and paste this, copy it directly. This will work just fine. So when we watch the records, this will essentially check only the invoice section, right? Header. And if it is send invoice, then it'll respond with like a thumbs up or like a continue, right? So that is it for our watch records. Now this is set to run at regular intervals. You could just set this to run like every day at 2:15 p.m. every day. Like that's fine too, you know. However often you want to run this, you can change that by clicking on this little clock here. So we have that module there. Boom. Now you're just going to want to click this where my mouse is hovering right now, and you're going to want to add a module just like that. Add a module, look up Airtable again, click on it. I already have it here. Just look up Airtable, click on it. And now we're going to want to go to the search records right here. So you're going to add a search records as I have right here. Now, if we go to it, you want to select your connection, Select your base, select your table just like we did before, grid view. Now you're gonna wanna select everything that's relevant to what you want returned from Airtable. So in this case, what we need to send an invoice and what I want to include in my invoices is just gonna be name, deal summary, email, phone, address, postal code. So like pretty much all of it. We don't need the current status or the email sequence. We don't need those things. You could pull them if you want and just choose to not use them. At the end of the day, this is all customizable. By pulling these, you aren't forced into using them, but this is what I've pulled. We're gonna leave the formula blank here. We don't need it as it's just gonna return what we've selected up here. That's it. And again, I set the limit to just 1, so it'll return 1 record. So if we have 100 records, it'll just return 1. Next up, this is assuming you're using Stripe. Go ahead, make a Stripe profile. By far the best payment processor out there from my experience. So create a Stripe profile. Again, it's easy to find your Stripe API key. I believe that's how you make a connection on Stripe. You're going to go add a module from Airtable. You're going to click this thing here. It'll pop up, open this module. And then we're going to go to create customer. So you're going to want to just click on create a customer right there, like I have. So this is my module, create a customer. Now I've left the description blank. However, when you click on this email field, you're going to see that your previous modules, your previous 2 Airtable modules are going to pop up right here. So now you can see the data that we've pulled in from Airtable. And just one thing before I keep going, imagine none of this is here. None of this stuff is here. So we unlink this and you just have these 2 modules. If you click run once, just like this, you'll get an operation complete. If you go choose where to start, all, and click run once, then you'll get the data pulled into these modules so that it's actually accessible within Stripe. So then when you go to email here, you'll have all of the information like I do here, right? So let me just run this again, actually, hold on. Now, you can see here that when I click run and I go choose where to start and click all, this is kind of a little bug in Make that, or not a bug, but just something that Make needs you to specify. So you want to click all and then it'll actually run the whole scenario. But you'll see when I click run, it just stops at this first module here and it doesn't actually output anything. And that's because we don't have the invoice set to send invoice, because in our formula that we've specified, right, this will only complete if invoice is equal to send invoice. So now when we run this, you can see everything will run. Let me just stop this before it completes there. So everything ran, right? Now, if we go back to Stripe here, we have email. Now, again, this is what I was talking about, email. You just want to grab the email, name, just click on name. And then these are the things that will be added to your new Stripe customer profile. Phone, address, right? This is why it's important to add these things in this level of detail. City, city right there. So just go through and click all of them. State, if that applies to you. If you're actually shipping something, you can add the shipping. And then I've left everything else blank. So that's how easy it is. Boom, create a customer. Next, click on the thing. We're gonna wanna create an invoice item. This is gonna be our next Stripe module. Go to Stripe, search create an invoice item. Connect your Stripe. Now your customer ID is gonna be the customer ID from your create a customer module that we literally just created. Very easy, just pop in your customer ID. Input an amount is gonna be buy a total amount. Now a quirk with Stripe is that when in your money field, in your like invoice amount here, we can see that that's $4,000 visually. However, in Stripe, that's going to be 4,000 cents. So for whatever reason, it converts it to cents. That's just how they operate on their back end. So when you're doing this in your amount down here, right, we're going to want to go invoice amount, click this. Then you're going to want to go over to these functions here and go to these operators. This little asterisk is the multiplication operator. And you're just going to go times 100. So then this, when this runs, it'll multiply 4,000 by 100 and give us 4,000, right? So it's a little weird, but just a quirk with Stripe. Look up your currency. I'm using Canadian dollars for this particular contract. And then our description is our deal summary from back here, right? Deal summary, chatbot development / CRM build. That's why it's good to put a deal summary in here, because it adds it to your invoice and just gives it a little more personalization, right? Now I haven't put a start end period. This is going to be good enough for us for now. So next up on the block, next module we're going to add another Stripe module, and it's going to be create an invoice. So let's jump into this create an invoice module in Stripe. Our customer ID is going to be the one that we created back here as well. Our Stripe customer ID are from our create a customer. We're not going to auto advance it. Collection method is going to be send an invoice. I've put it 3 days until due, so the person will have 3 days to pay the invoice. This can be whatever you want, of course. Our description is a deal summary, and then I wrote for, hard coded in for, and then wrote name. So this would be in our case, right? Chatbot development / CRM build for Nomi Nordic Spa. So it just makes sense, right? That's always good to add. And then I haven't put anything else in that is unnecessary for our use case. Now we're almost done. Second to last module is finalize a draft invoice right here. It's literally just going to be our invoice ID from our create an invoice, which was our previous module. So we're not going to use our create a customer ID. We're going to use our invoice ID from create an invoice right there. Then our very last module is going to be an API call. So this is the URL you're going to add. I literally just found this on Stripe's documentation on sending an invoice /v1/invoices/ then you're going to use our finalize a draft invoice, which is our most recent module. It's our second to last module, finalize a draft invoice. And we're going to pop the invoice ID in here /send. The method is going to be post. And that is literally all we're going to add. I haven't experimented with body at all, but I'm sure you can maybe add some more details to like the email. But this is how we're going to send an email. So now this is all set. Let's give this a run. Let's go back to here. We'll make sure that send invoice is ready to go. It's going to be sent to my email for testing purposes. So if we go back to Airtable and we run this, choose where to start, all, click OK, and then let's let this run. It's going to whip through this super quick. And that was complete very fast. Over to here. So now 225, it's 225. I just got this invoice from invoice. Now I'm sure there's a way to change that because that doesn't look very good. But as you can see, 4,000 Canadian dollars, due date July 20th, which is 3 days from now, it's the 17th. And then the memo, to Nomi Nordic Spa, memo, chatbot development / CRM build for Nomi Nordic Spa. So it looks very good. It looks professional. It's powered by Stripe. Again, they have an attached invoice down here. So for their tax purposes, for their accountant, they can just download this as a PDF, save this, and send it off to them. Bill to, it's got this entire lovely little object right there with all the stuff. And when they click pay invoice, it takes them to a Stripe portal. I better be recording. Okay, good. And they can just click card, right? Fill out their card and then pay $4,000. And that will go directly to our Stripe account. And Bob's your uncle. We're done, right? How simple is that? So this is part one of the build. Send invoices automatically. All you do, you toggle this little send invoice. And then whenever you set it to run, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, once a day, that will send automatically. Out of sight, out of mind, invoice sent. Boom. Okay. Now let's move on to part number 2 of our onboarding build. All right, here we are. Here is number 2. Build number 2. Here we go. So we have our trigger, which is our Stripe Watch events. That's going to go into search customers, create a channel, and then create a message in Slack. 4-part automation could not be simpler. So for our new module, look up Stripe, click on watch events. It's going to be there's going to be a lightning bolt here because it's an instant trigger. So the second our specified event gets sent and that object gets detected by Stripe, this will trigger. So let's go into this. You're going to want to add a new webhook. And then for the group down here, we're going to want to go to charge. Then we're going to want to go to charge succeeded down here. name your connection, charge succeeded, and then click OK. And now we'll have a webhook with a nice name, charge exceeded. So whenever a charge has been captured, this will run, which is just what we want. Next, we're gonna have a search customers object right here, or sorry, module right here. And the email is just going to be the object email from here. So we're gonna wanna go into here, and then we're just gonna click on receipt email. It's gonna be our email right here. Filter, we don't really need a filter on this because we're just looking for that one email. Limit one, easy as that. Pull our customer that just paid. Next up, we're gonna wanna create a channel, so new module, add a module. Up here, look up Slack, and then click on Slack, and then just look up, create a channel, add that in. From here, we're gonna wanna establish a connection with Slack. Again, very easy to do. You just need to create a Slack account, obviously with a workspace. Now, you can name this whatever you want, right? You could probably even use information from here to make this happen. So you could go like, you know, this is like their name. So name of business, name chat, and then set it to private. At least this is what I do for proxy. I always do a private channel. So we can get a custom name from that, and then this will create a private channel for our communication. Now, something that's very unfortunate that Slack decided to take out of their API for whatever reason was the option to invite a non-registered user. I forget what the module was called, but it was something like that. Because if we go into here and click on add a module and go into Slack and look up invite, all it is invite users. But with this module, it means that they have to already be like a part of your workspace somehow. This is just inviting them to a public or private channel that they aren't a part of, but this pertains that they're already a part of the workspace. Whereas the other module that they decided to get rid of meant that you could invite somebody that was like completely outside of that workspace entirely, which in this case, we're going to assume our client is. They're not in our workspace already, right? So this is a useless module. Again, you could maybe make an API call, but for the simplicity of this video, we will have to do this manually. It's pretty easy. You go into Slack, click on some little three dots, invite user, and you type in their email and it'll send them an invite. So this is that 2% of actually human intervention that I was talking about, but that's okay. So create a channel, and then next module is going to be create a message. We are going to want to go select from the list, channel type private channel, and then our private channel ID is just the ID that we created right here. So that can just be, you know, boom, that can just be slapped in just like that. And then we are gonna add some text, just hard code it in, whatever you want. This is the start of our wonderful automation project. We'll be using this channel to provide updates, check-ins, as well as general communication moving forward. And again, you could use the block builder to make it look a little fancier, but this is all you need at the end of the day. This is all you need. Clients are not gonna bat an eye if you just send text versus a fancy block. It's not that deep. So that's part 2. Once they pay, the invoice we sent them in part 1, this will capture that payment event and then create a channel for them and then send a Slack message to the channel. One after the other, it's like dominoes all falling into place. Now let's go on to part number 3. Now you may have been expecting something more elaborate for part 3, but the whole style of this video is simple. So this is part 3. This is all it is, right? Not that complicated, not that scary. So our first module here is going to be an Airtable search records module. All we're going to do is connect with that same connection we made in the first step of the video, base, lead list, table, burning hot leads, all the same stuff we've done before. View is going to be grid view. And then same thing, we're going to select our output fields. So all I'm looking for is the name, deal summary, email, and then current status, email, invoice, and email sequence. That's all I'm looking for, and we can leave the formula blank. That's perfectly fine. Now, our next module is going to be a router. So you can go add module. You can just look up router and just add that in. It's in flow control router, just like that. And then it'll automatically default to 2 pathways here. So our first pathway here, we're going to add an OpenAI module. So look up OpenAI, click on the create a completion module here, add that in, create a connection with OpenAI. Pretty simple. Again, hop onto their website, give them your credit card, they take your money and they give you cool shit. So create a chat completion model. We're just going to use Turbo, GPT 3.5 Turbo 0125. Of course, GPT-4o or GPT-4 is going to do this more comprehensively, but in this tutorial, we're just going to use 3.5 Turbo. Role system. All I've given it is you are a personal email assistant whose job is to draft awesome and chill emails to the clients of ProxyAI, which is the company you work for. Second message here. So all I do is add message, select the role, and then give it a message just like that. So the second message here is I'm going to need you to write a great email for one of my clients named, and then from our Airtable search records, we have access to name, deal summary, email, all the boxes that we ticked in that first Airtable module, we will have access to throughout the automation. So name, so I want you to one of my clients named Nomi Nordic Spa. Always assume we have been emailing this client for a couple days now, so there's no need to introduce yourself or be weird. Have some respect. No fluff at all. Get to the point. For example, hey there, quick check-in to see if there's anything else you need. Very good to give it more examples. I should probably give it more examples in this to give it a better output and just craft a better prompt. Base your email off of the status, and then we go to current email status right here. So current email status, where this comes in, this is almost like a little mini prompt for ChatGPT that you can write in here. So Nomi has been sent a contract, but has yet to sign it. We are 100% sure that it will be signed soon. In the meantime, it'd be nice to check in and send them an email, perhaps just saying how excited we are to start working with them. Again, this could be anything. Send them an email saying, join the Slack channel. Say, hey, I just sent a message in Slack. Did you see it? This can be anything, right? This current status here. So this is a way that we can kind of dynamically prompt it all in our CRM, and we don't have to go to all these other places to make this happen. So base it off our current email status. Also include the status of the invoice to dictate your email. So this is going to be our invoice right here. You open this object and then select this number 1 here, and this will either say ready to send or any of our other options. So this will either say ready to send, or it'll say awaiting contract signing. So then in the email, so if this was awaiting contract signing, and if we go back here, this value right here will be waiting contract signing. And then I said, just casually mention this. So in the email, it'll be like, hey, we're waiting for your contract to be signed. In the meantime, check out Slack, sign the contract, kind of a thing. Just casually mention this, weave it into email like a world-class writer would. Max tokens, I've set it to 0, so that will default to whatever the limit of the model will be. So that's it. That's going to be our our OpenAI module. Now, next module after that we're going to create is going to be a set variable in the tools. I've just called email draft 1, and the variable value is just our result from here. That's it. Boom. Put that in, so we have a nice place to store this for future reference. Again, we could send this somewhere if we wanted these to be stored for future reference, whatever we want. But then our next module after our tools set variable is going to be another OpenAI module, but this one is more interesting. So this one, our module type we're going to select, so you can look up OpenAI, is going to be this one right at the top, message an assistant, right? So once we select message an assistant, we're going to want to go on over to platform.openai.com. And this is going to be your account where you can do your fine tuning. Hey, go watch my video that I just made about fine tuning. We use this interface pretty heavily in here. You can use this is where your playground is, your assistants, right? So go to assistants and click create. So this is going to be your new untitled assistant. Give it a name, give it instructions. Right now I'm going to delete our assistant that we just made. So this is our email draft reviser. So create an assistant. I've named it email draft reviser. I said you are an email draft reviser with a keen eye on how to modify pre-existing emails to capture more attention, sound more human and genuine, as well as make them easier for our clients to read. So you give it some instructions. I selected GPT-4o to use. Turn on file search in tools here. And all I did was I looked up this 12 tips for writing effective emails from 2018. I just pulled this randomly off the internet. Ideally, you craft this yourself. So this gives it a little bit of a North Star so it can focus on how to craft good emails and how to actually make them sound enticing and have it so our clients don't want to jump off a cliff when they're reading our emails. So we have this, and then I've also given it a article that I wrote back in the day. So this is something that'll give it a little bit more context as to how I write and to how I would like the emails to kind of sound. Again, this maybe isn't the best article because this is talking about furniture, but you want to give it as much context as possible. So it'll automatically create a vector store for us, and we can add files to that. So make sure that file search is on, and then add files to give our email assistant context as to how we want it to operate. Now, I've turned the temperature down a little bit because the higher the temperature is, the more creative it would be. And the lower it is, the more predictable it will be. So I want it somewhere in the middle. Like 0.6 is probably good. Then all you do after you've created this, go back into Make, go on Message an Assistant here. And then from our assistants, it should pop up right here, your assistant. So Email Draft Reviser. Click on that, Role, User. And then I say, take a look at this email draft. I've given it the email draft from our tools that we set right here. And then all I said was write a new email with your revisions, skip the formalities, and get to the point in your email. I'll give you a sec to read this. You can copy this. Again, it's not the best prompt in the world. I'd recommend doing a bit of your own legwork to make a better prompt. Take your time, do a good job. So that's going to be our top line here. Our assistant is going to revise our email that was created in this first module and create our ultimate perfect final email. And then again, or sorry, not again, but this is something I forgot to mention. Now, I've created a filter right here. So all you click on the middle here, you click on this little wrench icon. Click on it. So I've set the label as start email. So the condition is if email sequence, so I clicked on this one right here. If email sequence is equal to start email, which it's not at the moment, then it has to be exactly equal to start email. Then it can go up this path. So if it's not equal to start email, then it will automatically default to our bottom path where we've put an Airtable upsert a record module. In this one, it's the exact same thing, lead list, burning hot leads. Our record ID is going to be the ID from our search records that we pulled. And then all we're going to do is go down to email sequence value and just put no email yet. So then in the email sequence, it'll actually just select no email yet if this automation runs and an email and the email sequence hasn't been set to start email. It'll automatically add the no email yet. So if you have a big sales team, it's a really good visual on just, oh, this person hasn't started the email sequence. Okay, let me click on this. Let me click start email sequence. So email sequence is blank. So let's run this right now. Again, okay, I think it should do the whole thing. So you can see since that email sequence wasn't equal to start email, look, it just updated. So now we have no email yet right here, right? So that's perfect. Now, if we delete this and do start email right here, we go back to, where am I going? We go back to here and we run this again. You can see it goes up that top path and now our assistant is going to generate us our email. So let's see our start email right here. If we go to result, hey, just a quick check-in to see how thrilled we are to have the opportunity to work with Knowing Nordic Spa. We're eagerly awaiting the signed contract to officially kick off our collaboration. And it's saying that because the invoice is awaiting contract signing and of our current email status. Now, once the contract is signed, we'll be able to proceed smoothly with the next steps. If there's anything you need clarification on or adjustments you'd like to make before signing, please let us know. Rest assured, as soon as everything is in place, we'll seamlessly process the invoice for you. So pretty easy, your position, proxy AI. Pretty good, pretty good. Maybe a little long, but let's see what our email assistant did. So you can see it's dramatically shorter. Hi, client's name, subject, next steps for Nomi Nordic Spa. We're excited to start working with Nomi Nordic Spa. Please review and sign the contract so we can proceed. This is very straight to the point, which is what I directed it to be. If you have any questions or need changes, let us know. The invoice will be processed once the contract is signed. Looking forward to our collaboration. So much better, much more succinct. And this is an email that I would honestly probably send it's like 90% accurate, something that I would send. So that's really good to see. Now from here, we can save the email back into our CRM, or we can just add an email module here and we can create a draft. And then from there, we can add our information that our assistant created, and we can actually send, or we can create a draft with that subject line, with that body, or if we're confident enough in our assistant, we could literally just get it to send right away. So there you have it, our 3-step onboarding process for Proxy. Extremely simple, not that complicated. I really hope I walked over that in an understandable way. Like, sometimes I know I can maybe be a little fast or go over things a little too quickly, but I think that was straightforward enough. Again, this onboarding process has saved us so much time, and it's so simple and so useful, to the point where when I'm networking, when I'm out and about, I'll literally just bring this up to you. I'll be like, have you set up an onboarding process yet? An onboarding automation? What are you doing? Like, I'll do it for you for free. Like, that's how passionate I am about businesses having this sort of a system in place, because it's so simple, so useful, and saves so much time. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, as always, my socials will be in the description of the video. Shoot me a message on there, connect with me, you know the drill, or just put a comment on this video and I'll get back to you when I see the comment. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.